You are now listening to the Someone's Favorite Productions podcast network.
Hey, this is Jason Kleberg from the Force 5 Podcast, a show that forces a guest to come up with a movie-themed top 5 list topic, and then we reveal our picks on air. Top 5 heist films, top 5 tearjerkers, top 5 movie dogs. Every show you'll be asking yourself, what would be on my list? Guests include directors, screenwriters, actors, podcasters, musicians, authors, and even a professional wrestler. Subscribe to the Force 5 Podcast, and you won't just be a listener, you'll be a list nerd. The Force 5 Podcast, available wherever you're listening now.
The following podcast will contain spoilers, tangents, hot takes, and excessive foul language. Viewer discretion is advised. Enjoy the show.
Welcome back to Frightmares Podcast. I'm your host, Austin Proctor, and joining me today for episode 392 is my good buddy, Michael Vyers. How we doing?
I'm doing pretty good, actually. Can't complain.
Today on the first installment of Animaugust Attack. I know, not my best, but this is what it is. We're discussing our essential pick, The Birds from 1963, where Tippi Hedren literally got pelted with birds by Alfred Hitchcock. I mean, yeah. So there's that. Let's see where this one lands on the Nightmare Index. Okie dokie. It is Sunday. Man, I am still waking up. But let's talk about some things we've recently watched. For you, you can go. You can go back a little ways. Maybe like 2 weeks or something. Give me the highlights. Give me
the highlights. Okay, let's go back to like the 19th. So Amanda and I have been watching the new Cape Fear television show on Apple TV.
Oh, I've heard it's so good, and then it ended, and people were mad.
It is deliciously trashy.
Oh, okay.
But so to celebrate, we went back and watched Martin Scorsese's 1991 film, and then we're gonna go back further and watch the 1960s one. So that one's a good fun. Let's see. What else has been worth talking about? Raising Arizona. It's not a horror film. Sorry.
Oh, no, you're fine. Austin. You're fine. You can literally mention whatever you want. It's fine.
We watched Raising Arizona for the next episode of Cage's The Rage, which we just recorded. What a delightful fucking movie. Have you seen Raising Arizona?
I have, but it was during the, drinking career, so I need to go back with a sober mindset and watch it because I was not a fan. Same thing with Moonstruck.
Oh, you didn't like Moonstruck.
I know. Trust me. My wife tried to show me a lot of things when I was in my, just deep alcoholism that I was like, this is fucking stupid. So,
I said that out loud, and Amanda just like from her computer went just staring at you. Was staring at me to stare at you.
Yeah, I know. So I need to go back and read. But you covered both of those on that episode, right?
We covered 3 movies. We covered The Boy in Blue, which is a very underseen Canadian movie where Nicolas Cage plays a sculler. You know what sculling is? It's like when you do the rowboating on the really long boats.
Is that what that's called? I thought that was
sculling.
Sculling. Okay. So
we watched that, and then we had a really interesting double feature of Peggy Sue Got Married and Raising Arizona. So Moonstruck will be on the next episode, and I just bought the Criterion for that. So
that's what it was. I saw your physical media hall. Yes, that's what it was. So
that's a good one if you guys haven't seen. It's also weird to think that it is the second film by the Coen brothers. They went from Blood Simple, which if those of you out there have not seen Blood Simple, it's more in line with No Country for Old Men in terms of tone. So they go from that to Raising Arizona, which is somewhere in between Blood Simple and like Hudsucker Proxy in terms of its zaniness.
Mm-hmm. And
So-
then, you know what, I would say like Fargo is almost a mishmash of Blood Simple and Raising Arizona without the kid.
there's like a chart you could do for the Coen Brothers. Like you have Blood Simple and No Country for Old Men, Hudsucker Proxy, and like Hail Caesar over here. He likes to jump up on my desk sometimes, and I don't like him doing that when I'm recording.
Oh, the cat.
Yeah. But you have like a chart for the Coen Brothers, and you can kind of fit their films in there,
right?
Based on that. Yeah. I don't want to take too much time. I watched The Odyssey. But I feel like that's not a surprise. Everyone's watching The Odyssey. I don't know what else I can say that everyone else probably isn't, but I loved it. Fuck the fake bullshit where people are like, it's not historically accurate. Shove your historical accuracy up your ass.
Oh, I heard. What did
It's a myth. It's a myth.
What did I hear about something about the Trojan horse? It wasn't how it was, and oh my God, who cares? You're picking the weirdest things to have a problem with. Really?
Yeah. I also watched Crime 101, which I liked quite a bit. It's like somewhere in between Heat and Drive in terms of like its tone. It also shot by cinematographer Eric Wilson, who shot the Paddington movies, which I think is really funny.
I still need to see those because they're like so highly rated. It's unreal.
But it's a very solid crime flick, and Mark Ruffalo is doing like his best Columbo impression throughout the film, which is also kind of it's like Columbo if he's going through a divorce.
All right.
And then the last two things I'm just going to highlight just because I like to occasionally go back to the earliest point that I can find on Letterboxd and try to watch as many of those early short films as you possibly can just to kind of fill in my knowledge gap. So I watched the earliest short film that is listed on Letterboxd, The Passage of Venus from 1874. It is a photo sequence that is depicting Venus over the face of the sun. It's just it's like 6 seconds long, but it is considered to be the earliest what we consider to be film in the world. And then I also watched the first GIF from 1878. It's 6 seconds. An animation of these kids, like, that game where you have like a towel and you have like a person or a thing in the middle of the towel and you guys are like launching it up.
Oh yeah.
It's an animation of kids doing that with a cat for like 6 seconds. It's the first ever GIF because it just repeats.
Interesting.
So,
all right.
That's my chaotic watch list.
Wow. All right. I can't really match that, but
start watching stuff from 1874, Austin.
Get on my level. So let's see. The movie that we forgot to talk about last week, Gabby and I, that we watched because we watched like 2 stinkers in a row. Werewolves on Wheels being the second stinker, but I think it's a new movie for this year. Maybe it's a couple years old. I can't remember. It says 2024, but we all know how indie movies are and when they actually release. It's called Stalker Jane, and it was sent over by AV Entertainment. I say sent over like I don't pick the movies I want to review.
They still sent it to you. Yeah, they mailed it to you.
Provided by, picked by, but provided by AV Entertainment. And great poster. Love the poster. It had, and these must be a case of people who were in the movie and around the production gassing up the ratings because it's got good ratings. And it has I
love when that happens.
It's got a good premise too. And then ultimately I was just like, this is clearly a movie not made by a Gen Z, but made for Gen Z. Like, that's the best way I can describe it. But
okay.
From
what's it called again?
Stalker Jane.
All right, I'm gonna look it up. Keep talking.
Now, I'm no filmmaker by any means. I've made the one
Give
short.
yourself some credit. Give yourself some fucking credit. You know how hard it is to make a film. Continue.
So yeah, like I said, I'm no filmmaker. I know how hard it is to make them. One piece of advice, and this is going to be in my review for this movie, is just because you can have a 9-minute scene does not mean you need to do a 9-minute scene.
9-minute uninterrupted?
It's just like every scene went on for like a minute too long. Like just like
Gotcha.
every scene was just too long. And I understand that's kind of the creative liberties you can have as an independent filmmaker. You can kind of do whatever you want in a sense. But it was to the point where I was like the last scene of the movie, I'm like, yo, this really needed to be a 30-second shot. And it was like a 6-minute just uninterrupted shot. And I'm like, this is crazy. The main actress, this is the first movie she's ever done. I can see her like becoming a great actress, but also she is skin and bones in this movie. And I really just wanted to give her a sandwich because I'm like, girl, like it's unhealthy how skinny you look. But she does play a really good kind of aloof, very creepy, I guess, in a way. But the movie really isn't about stalking so much as it is. You'll have to watch it to see. The title is very misleading because it's not so much about stalking as it is just invading this person's life. So I gave that 1 a 2 out of 5 just because by all accounts it is not a good movie. And yeah, like there is a good movie in there. It's in there somewhere, but it needs to be re-edited. You know what I mean? There's if you rework that movie and rework the premise, there's a good movie in there. Also, the biggest issue I had, especially as a musician, as a drummer, when you make a movie that is centered around a band and you don't actually have that band playing for real, that irritates me. The drumming does not sync up with what the drummer's doing. The guitarist not really syncing up with what the guitar is doing. I think you see them play 1, maybe 2 songs, and then you see another band in the movie. I think they are actually playing, so that irritates me. If you're gonna put your movie around musicians, get actual musicians or people that can fake it better than what we got. But that's a whole other conversation.
Yeah. I don't need them to be playing. I just need I don't need them to actually be musicians. I just need to be whatever they're pantomiming to match up. Yeah.
And as a drummer, I know when you're hitting the ride. I know when you're hitting a crash. I know when you're hitting the hi-hat, and it was all mixed up. And I was like, it's one of my biggest pet peeves. That's why I like Whiplash so much, because they're genuinely playing. Let's see, what else? I watched all the Spider-Man movies in preparation for Brand New Day. Homecoming, 4-star. Far From Home, 4.5. No Way Home, 5. I just think this progressively got better. I did like Brand New Day, but I feel like it ultimately suffers what I didn't like about Guardians of the Galaxy 3, where it was centered around it was basically Rocket. Like that was the whole movie.
Wait, Rocket's in that movie?
Guardians of the Galaxy. Oh, I thought you were talking about Spider-Man. No. So yeah, like it's not that Guardians of the Galaxy 3 is bad. It's just like I don't know why we're making him. I don't know. It was very weird. So I have mixed feelings on that one. But this one brings in a character and focuses on that character more than I feel it does Spider-Man. It also has just so many other characters. It's almost an Avengers movie with how many people from the MCU are in it. Now, Spider-Man's interaction with one of the main characters that is in there, I don't really think it's a spoiler, but I'm not going to say who. They're fantastic. Of course, Zendaya is great. It's a good movie, but it has like a 4.2, and I'm like, maybe I'm just not getting something, but I think I'm probably going to give it a 4. I think it's probably my least favorite of the 4 that they've done, but it's still a fantastically done movie. Too much going on. For a non...
Honestly, that's been my problem with Marvel films for a long fucking time. Too much going on.
Yeah, this is a Spider-Man.
Simplify this shit.
Yeah, this is a Spider-Man movie. We don't have to have all... I mean, it makes sense because a lot of the people they're using are based in New York. So, I get why they're using them. But, anyways.
I'm web slinging here.
So I gave that one a 4. It's still fantastic. And then catching up on my cult movie challenge, I watched a movie called Bloodbath, directed by Stephanie Rothman. It was Stephanie Rothman Week. She is a director from the 60s and 70s who got into exploitation filmmaking through Roger Corman, interestingly enough. And so... the interesting thing about Bloodbath is the fact that it was actually directed by Jack Hill, and she came in to, I guess, finish the movie, and she shot about 30 minutes of new footage, and then they kind of mishmashed it together. It's a vampire movie that doesn't follow any vampire lore, and it very feels similar. It feels like similarly akin to Bucket of Blood, because there's a beatnik cafe, there's these artists, there's a lot of, murder. Man, so
I miss that time period in film when like beatniks were just really a fucking thing.
Yeah, you'd probably like Bloodbath. It's really good. It just, the vampire element, they could have removed that entirely, and ultimately it would have been a better film, but it was still enjoyable. 3 out of 5. Like, I enjoyed it. And then this week's Cult Movie Challenge I haven't done yet, but it is American International Week, and I will fill you in on what that is next episode. But I picked a movie called The Undead from 1957. I have so let's see, I did 56.
Real quick, I assume that's American International Pictures, AIP.
I assume so, yeah.
Okay. They're that was Corman. That was Corman's company.
Okay, so we're in a Corman era then. Okay, I get it. Because, I did a movie from 56 and then 66, 57. The next one will be 60. The next one's 74. So I'm in the trenches with, all of these older movies, and I'm fucking in love with it. So other than that, I don't think I have anything to report on watching outside of, I did watch American Gigolo, but you can hear my thoughts on The Cutting Room Floor, which is a new segment we're doing for the Shameless Picture Show. And those come out every other week, as your show does. So basically you get something every week from the Shameless now, because I'm doing little mini episodes. So hopefully people like those. Other than that, and my love for Frankenhooker that I watched again, because I love that movie, 5 stars. And that's it. So I think we're going to move on to the cold open. The body count. Where's my mouse? I can never find there it is. All right, so this is The Birds from 1963, released on March 29th of that year in the U.S. 6 days, 7, math after my birthday. So this is where it gets confusing. I'm assuming this was reassessed by the MPAA because it's rated PG-13, but as we all know, that would not come out until the 1980s. So
yeah, it was probably a situation of when it got a re-release. You can't.
Right.
When a film didn't have a rating, you can't re-release it in theaters without a rating, so it got reassessed, essentially. Same thing when they put it on television. They have to give it a different rating because television ratings don't work the same.
So that's what I'm assuming, especially because it's it's a Hitchcock, so it's a big movie. No sex or nudity, moderate violence and gore, no profanity, mild alcohol, drugs, and smoking, and moderate frightening and intense scenes. Coming in at 1 hour and 59 minutes, quite long. Listed as a drama, horror, mystery, thriller. I'm gonna go through each person, and then I'm gonna ask you if you have anything to add if I didn't include it. So, because I know you like to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, directed by Alfred Hitchcock. I don't really think I need to explain this man's career. He's done things: Psycho, Vertigo, North by Northwest, Strangers on a Train. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. You got me
prolific.
Yeah, prolific. You got me one of his earlier films, The Lodger, which is a silent film, and I'm gonna be watching that very soon because I will definitely be going on a Hitchcock binge here this month. Because
that was a very early one. That one
28, I think.
That was his technically fifth film, but most of the films before that were either lost or not completed. So it's considered what many consider to be the first film, but it's like his fifth.
Okay, gotcha. So yeah, I'm excited to watch that because I think it's crazy that this man worked through so many fucking eras of film, that he was doing movies in the 20s in the silent era. So we have written by Evan Hunter. He has 20 other credits for movies I have not heard of. Anything you got on Evan Hunter?
Not really. He does nothing. That's not to be mean or anything. He's had a pretty prolific career. He just is not one that I'm super familiar with.
Yeah, me neither. And this is actually based off of a book or a story by Daphne du Maurier. She is the original author from the story from 1952, included in the Apple Tree collection. No composer because there is no score in this movie. Fun fact.
I do have some interesting facts about that.
Perfect. Do you want to do that now, or do you want to do that when we go into the movie?
So I can. So the film does not have a traditional score. However, the bird sounds, which I'm sure listeners nowadays will notice, do sound a bit artificial. The bird sounds were created by a gentleman by the name of Oscar Sala, and he used an early synthesizer called a mixture trantonium. I'm sure I'm mispronouncing that. And that's what he used to create the sounds. And Hitchcock knew that they weren't going to have a traditional score, but he wanted to make sure that there was a musicality to it. So it's not musical. Don't get me wrong.
Right.
But he actually had Oscar Sala collaborate with Hitchcock's go-to composer Bernard Herrmann, and he worked as a consultant on it. So that way, if you're gonna utilize sound effects to replace a traditional score, it makes sense to have a composer kind of lend his ears to it. So, like I said, they sound a bit artificial, but there is a really interesting vibe to it, and I think it does kind of work beautifully.
Yeah, those birds definitely sound very strange. So yeah, no technical score in it. Cinematography by Robert Burks, who was a frequent collaborator with Hitchcock. He did cinematography for Strangers on the Train, Rear Window, Vertigo. I know I'm missing a lot of movies, but I usually limit it to 3. Anything you got for Robert Burks?
No, just pretty much going off what you said. Some of Hitchcock's best looking films, he's responsible for. I'm kind of torn on Vertigo itself, but it is one of the most stunningly filmed movies I've ever seen. Rear Window, To Catch a Thief, they all are phenomenal films, and he doesn't really get the chance to show it as much on this, and we can kind of talk about the gritty look of this movie. But Robert Burke, one thing that I really like about Robert Burks, is his use of color. If you go back and watch some of Hitchcock's earlier films, like Vertigo or To Catch a Thief, the color work is just phenomenal, and part of that is the film stocks that they use.
Well, and Vertigo was one of the first movies, or if not the first movie, to have a title sequence that involved something. Because the title sequence in Vertigo is one of the most insane things for the time ever done.
Yeah, it's a Saul Bass title sequence, so it's just really creative.
There we go. That's the name. And then edited by George Tomasini, who also was a collaborator with Hitchcock. He did Rear Window, Vertigo, and Psycho. So some more just great looking Hitchcock movies. Let's see. Starring, I know you're going to have something to say on this because I included a movie that's just silly. So Rod Taylor as Mitch Brenner. He was also in a movie called Caw from 2006 as Doc. And I only mention this movie because it's another movie about killer birds, and it's on my shelf to watch for this month for Animal Attack. But why don't you tell the audience something that he's been in that they might have actually seen?
Well, he was the voice of Pongo in 101 Dalmatians.
Oh, there you go. See, there's one.
And he played Winston Churchill in Inglourious Basterds.
That was his last credit. I did see that. I almost included that until I saw Caw, and I was like, oh my God, that'll be a little nugget for Jason Hill. Shout out Jason Hill. We have Jessica Tandy as Lydia Brenner. I think everyone's probably going to recognize her from Driving Miss Daisy as Daisy Worthen. Suzanne Plachette as Annie Hayworth. She was in 140 episodes 142 episodes of the Bob Newhart Show as Emily Hartley. I would say that was her biggest achievement. When I was going through her credits, not a lot of movies I recognized, but she definitely worked the hell out of that show. And then we have introducing Tippi Hedren as Melanie Davis, even though she was technically doing commercials and has, she was doing things before this, but this was her first. This was her
first big role.
Big role.
It was.
Yeah.
She was considered a discovery at the time.
And then she would also play Marnie in Marnie from the next year by Hitchcock. And then lastly, we have Veronica Cartwright as Kathy Brenner, because she was also in Alien as Lambert and Invasion of the Body Snatchers, 1978 as Nancy Belichick. Estimated budget of $2.5 million, only grossing $62,000 according to Box Office Mojo. This was filmed in Universal Studios, stages 28, 32, and 44. San Francisco, Bodega Bay, which is actually a real place, and some other various cities around California. You can watch.
I want to go there.
I do too. Now that I know it's real, you can watch this on Prime, Apple TV, Fandango, YouTube for a $3.99 rental. Listen to the movies that came out around the same time. Pretty good stuff here. The Great Escape, Cleopatra, Jason and the Argonauts, which I haven't seen that Friday the 13th movie. I'll have to go check that out. Lord of the Flies. The Nutty Professor, which I didn't realize there was an original. The Raven, King Kong versus Godzilla, Bye Bye Birdie, The Terra, and Son of Flubber. So an interesting year for 1963. IMDb summary: a wealthy San Francisco socialite pursues a potential boyfriend to a small Northern California town that takes a turn for the bizarre when birds of all kinds suddenly begin to attack people. This is the Autopsy. Gross. All right, Michael. So
I didn't hear it.
You didn't hear it? Oh, that's weird. Huh.
It's okay.
So, Michael, this is actually your first viewing of The Birds. Overall thoughts? What do you got?
So one thing I just want to point out that I saw The Birds too before I saw The Birds, which I think is just really funny.
So you've actually seen the sequel?
Yeah.
I'll be watching that today.
Vinegar Syndrome sent me a copy of it like a couple of years ago, so okay. I was like, let's just go into this blind.
Yeah,
blind as I possibly can.
I doubt they're going to be that related, but I don't know. So
not really. Like Tippi Hedren has like she walks in the movie for a cup of coffee, and that's kind of about it. But
girl, why are you still there?
Because fucking paychecks, Austin. Goddamn. Yeah. Anyways, so can I give a little bit of my context behind this film a little bit?
Go for it, yeah.
Am I allowed, or do you want me to just start with my overall thoughts?
Let's go overall thoughts, and then we'll go into context. I like that.
I like the movie. I like the movie more than I thought I was going to like the movie. And the reason I say it that way is it will come down to when I do get to my my history with this film. I actually liked it quite a bit more than I was expecting. I think it's extremely effective, especially for its time period. Okay.
So I've seen this one time before. Can't tell you when it was. Letterboxd could tell me, but it's too late and I don't want to waste time. I really enjoyed it on that watch, and this watch, for some reason, I am not sure what it is. You know, your environment really does affect how you view a movie, and maybe I just wasn't in the right headspace. It could have been these screaming children outside playing soccer in the streets that were pissing me off to no end, because our neighborhood kids are the most annoying kids on the planet Earth.
I hope they're listening.
I really hope they're listening, because we're also on a corner lot, so we just get all the noise. But
gonna give those kids 1 star.
Yeah, I'm gonna give those kids 1 out of 5. 0 out of 5. I don't know. It's something just was not working for me, and I'm gonna explain all of that when we get into kind of the flow of this movie, because I feel like obviously most movies, for the most part, have a 3-act structure. It's not a secret. And I felt like the changes into each different act were so painfully jarring to me that I was like, it felt very disconnected. And I will explain further, but I will leave it there in my overall thoughts. So let's go back to your context of this movie, because I don't want to forget, and I want to know exactly what you mean by your context. So hit me with that.
So this is a movie that I have been very aware of for my pretty much entire life, because my parents are a little bit older. Like, my mom was born in the 60s, my dad was born in the 50s. So I just kind of had a steady diet of older movies throughout my life, just because that's what they grew up with. And I had always been very aware of who Alfred Hitchcock was, because of, like, I knew he had a television show. My mom showed me Psycho at kind of an early age. But The Birds was always a film that was talked about quite a bit, to the point that I think it really traumatized my mother. Like, anytime she sees birds gathering, she kind of gets a little freaked out a little bit. So I think this movie just really fucked her up at a young age, which it seemed like this was the Jaws of its time, so I'm not surprised. But I kind of I was putting this movie off. I'll be completely honest. I like the works of Alfred Hitchcock quite a bit, but for some reason, I thought this one was going to be a lot sillier than it actually is, because I'd seen some of the effect shots, and it's not to say that I thought the effect shots looked silly. I just thought it was going to be that for the entire runtime. And even though I like animal attack films, for some reason, I just had a certain idea in my mind of what this film was going to be, and I kept putting it off. And probably didn't help that I saw The Birds 2 first, like, because The Birds 2 is what closer to what I thought The Birds was going to be, which is kind of insulting to The Birds.
Oh my god!
But so I legitimately held, can't think of the word. I legitimately put it off. But I'm glad I finally had an excuse, and not to say I always had an excuse to watch, but I'm glad I had something that was finally pushing me to watch it. Okay. And yeah, so it's not a huge history, but
No, I like that because last night when we were talking, or maybe 2 days ago, you're like, yeah, I'd actually never seen it. I was like, oh shit! So we're keeping the spirit of the Shameless Picture Show alive over here, because that happens more often than not when you're a part of the show. Either like Frostbite or Wrath of the Wendigo, I'd never seen that, and that was one you recommended, and it's like one of my all-time faves now. So okay, so it's interesting. You've known about it's. I have movies like that too. Like I know about this movie. The Godfather obviously is probably my example of The Birds. I knew about this movie forever, and then finally watched it, for your show. So it's funny how that happens. But let's break this down, right? So I think I want to start with, because really where the movie starts is the weirdest meet cute in cinematic history. Because so you got a guy walking into a pet shop looking for lovebirds. Okay. Woman who doesn't even work there decides she's going to pretend to be an employee just to mess with him because she's a little sneaky prankster. And he immediately realizes she's bluffing and spends the next few minutes teasing her instead of calling her out. And then rather than being embarrassed, she's kind of fascinated by him. So she writes down his license plate, tracks him out to where he lives, only to discover that he's out of town, then drives 2 to 3 hours to Bodega Bay, rents a boat she doesn't know how to operate, well, barely, sneaks onto the property, breaks into his house, leaving a pair of lovebirds.
While wearing a fucking fur coat and heels.
Gabby pointed that out. She was like, all of this in a fur coat. Now let's reverse those roles.
Fabulous.
And have this be a guy doing this to a girl, and the tone immediately changes, right? Like it's not it's not cute anymore. So it's so strange that Tippi Hedren wasn't even supposed to fucking be in this town, and ultimately she's there because of a prank she wanted to play on this guy, because like they're attracted to each other. Today, that would be like an episode of Dateline, but in 1963, it's like foreplay, I guess. I don't know. But it is an interesting introduction to the movie, because I think The Birds has one of the strangest tonal evolutions I've seen in quite some time. The first act is this breezy romantic comedy. The second act suddenly becomes a full-blown disaster movie with birds. And then the third act morphs into this claustrophobic, almost home invasion movie. And then it's like there's this epilogue at the end that feels very post-apocalyptic. Anything to say about all that? Do you agree, disagree? What do we got? I just want to know if I'm off base or not.
No. I will say I definitely agree in that there is a level of suspending disbelief to really get behind the plot point. So what I think is happening is, I believe that Alfred Hitchcock is trying to lull the audience into like this false sense of security, because romantic subplots had always been kind of, not always, but had been a thing in his filmmaking career, and it was just a really popular thing in the world of film and filmmaking at that time. So he thought, let's say, okay, we have these two attractive people. Let's start the film off with them, and show that they're kind of charming, that and kind of just want to make these people make the audience like hanging out with these people and want to see where this goes. Now, the plot convenience of her going to Bodega Bay to play a prank / give this gift to his sister is really far fetched. But they had to get Tippi Hedren to Bodega Bay, and this is how they're doing it. And it's very much, I truly believe it was, this doesn't 100% work, but if we make everything in Bodega Bay fucking sing, this will all be forgiven. And Hitchcock takes his time with this film, and I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I think he is trying to establish the tone and the pace of what this town is like, so that way when he eventually does get to the upside down world,
I like that.
The upside down world, it matters, because you have to, before you can really do much else, you have to establish what the world is like, so that way you can show what its opposite is. So if you think about it, everything in Bodega Bay is, kind of taking its time, and it's kind of sweet and nice and slow. But then the back half of the film is chaos, quick cuts, and insanity.
Yeah, like and those are some good points. He's definitely taking his time, and in my opinion, I feel it's a little. I just feel like I don't mind taking your time at all, but it's not until about 52 minutes, because about the first 45 minutes is establishing Melanie Daniels, Mitch Brenner, his younger sister Kathy, and the fiercely protective mother Lydia. So he is laying the emotional groundwork before pulling the rug out from underneath everyone. But at about 52 minutes, that's when it's like a violent shift. And was it intentional? I assume it was. It's Hitchcock. Everything has to be intentional with him, but it was just so jarring that we go from focusing on these two people to all of a sudden birds are just attacking this party. I was like, this is the start of Act 2. So it was like very easy to pinpoint the acts rather than it kind of feeling like a natural progression. You do have Tippi getting attacked by that bird in the beginning, kind of hinting at what's to come, but there's no real natural progression in terms of the birds attacking. It's just all of a sudden, boom, they're attacking. So I guess I just struggle to that tonal shift.
I think that's the point. I think that's the point.
Okay, all right.
Like, they're kind of laying the groundwork that the birds are gathering, that things are just kind of unsettling. Like you said, you get the moment of Tippi in the boat. You get the bird that kind of kamikazes itself at Anne's house. They're showing that they are acting out of the ordinary, and I feel like the point of this film is to show that at some point nature can just turn against you.
Okay. See, and this is exactly why I love discussing movies. This is exactly the reason, because all of the things that I've had issues with, you're giving me reasons to look at it from a different perspective, and I can see the.
And I'm not saying I'm right. I'm just giving a different perspective.
No, and that's what I love. You're giving a different perspective because you are right. I think, and that's why everyone's going to say Jaws is the essential animal attack movie, but I wanted to do something pre-Jaws, because really before The Birds, we have animal attack movies, but it's like the giant tarantula or like the beast from 1,000 or whatever. So this is really one of the first movies to take an animal that's not typically just going to attack you. I mean, yes, birds have been known to attack, but not in the masses like this. So I picked The Birds for that reason, because it's from 1963. He's coming off the heels of Psycho, which is, obviously, in my opinion, one of the greatest horror movies that has ever been made. And so that's why I picked this one, because it really is kind of one of the first movies to do this. And then, in the 70s, you'd get a lot of disaster movies with like Empire of the Ants and Phase 4 and all of that stuff. So I feel like Hitchcock laid the groundwork in the 60s, and then the 70s is really where they started rolling in with like animal attack movies. And you also have Orca the Killer Whale. You've got Jaws. You've got all these animals. So that's why I picked this one. But going back to the movie here, and I think that, that might be exactly what it is. It was kind of to establish that this can happen at any time. Birds can just go fucking nuts, I mean, like, you're not wrong there. Also,
think about it this way. Those early bird attacks, the one of Tippi on the boat and the one at Anne's house, and I feel like we are getting we're getting shots throughout that of the birds kind of gathering and just acting unusual. How is that any different than when the little boy is killed in Jaws?
Okay.
And actually, Jaws, if we're going to use Jaws as an example, Jaws starts even sooner. The movie begins with a bird attack, not bird, but begins with a shark attack.
Right.
And then kind of makes you wait for anything else. So, you know, if I'm gonna continue with this comparison, I feel like if anything, the birds kind of eases us into it a little more slowly than Jaws did, because Jaws opens up with a brutal attack.
That's right. It's a woman on the beach who just gets yanked down into the water. And then it's about, an hour before you actually see the shark, but you do have the boy that gets attacked. The first act, in my opinion, I think it is where it meanders the most, because a lot of the dialogue...
It's a lot of character setup.
It's a lot of character setup. You're right. It's a lot of character setup. It's at its center, it is a romance kind of comedy thing going on. It does meander a little bit. I feel like there could have been some stuff cut out, but this is exactly where, the audience can see where the relationship is heading within about 5 minutes of the movies, but the characters kind of insist on pretending otherwise. Like I said, for 52 minutes is when the birds start attacking. It's all incredibly cute and playful, but you can clearly tell that Hitchcock is in no hurry to get to the movie that we quote unquote bought a ticket for. So
yeah, that's called the promise of the premise, or if you're a Save the Cat devotee like I am, they call it the fun and games section of the film. And yeah, it is pushed back a little bit in this film, but I do feel like Hitchcock, or more so Evan Hunter, I don't want to belittle the work that Evan Hunter did on this. I do believe he is he is hitting the beats just at a slightly different time period, and different spot in the film. And I think some of that is from what I've read online, and just in one of the books that I have from Hitchcock, while he didn't improvise the script at all, he allowed for improvisation while making the film. So I wouldn't be surprised if he slowed some things down and kind of took a little bit, because the catalyst, which is if once again going back to Save the Cat, if you're looking at how a film begins, you have the opening image of the film, you have the theme stated, you have the setup, which is that's all within the first 10 pages, and about page 12 would be the catalyst, which in this case, think about the catalyst as like Neo meets Trinity at the club in the Matrix.
Okay.
That's what kind of tricks his brain, and oh, there's maybe more to this world. It's your inciting incident. In this movie, the inciting incident is her going to Bodega Bay. So it gets pushed back a little bit because they have an extended setup, but and I wasn't keeping track of times, so I'm just assuming it's pushed back a little bit. I think they're hitting all the beats, everything you need in the hero's journey.
I was unintentionally keeping track of time, because I hit the time to see it was 19, because I just wanted to see when she got to Bodega Bay. It's about 19 minutes when she got to Bodega Bay.
Funny enough, I broke this movie up into two perfect halves, because I was originally watching it on Friday and I had to leave the house for something, and I stopped it at an hour mark. So then I finished the last hour the next day, and it's very interesting, because I'm trying to remember where the hour mark ends. It's definitely after the first bird attack.
They're not in the school at that point yet, are they?
No, they haven't gotten to the school, so it's the party. It ends after the party. So then it's kind of like a beautiful place to end the film, put an intermission, or a 2-episode type of thing, where it's you get this insanity, and then the second half of it just really books.
The second half of it does really book, and I think there is almost kind of a comparison for me to Psycho in a sense, right? So, because like I said, Hitchcock is lulling you into believe you've settled into a conventional romantic comedy at first, and that's what makes the kind of genre shift feel so aggressive because, like I said, around 52 minutes, the birds start attacking. So the comparison to Psycho to me is that, you know, Hitchcock shocks audience by killing off our protagonist early on in the movie, forcing viewers to kind of recalibrate everything we thought we were watching. Here he does a similar trick, but instead of removing the main character, he removes the entire genre. He takes the romantic comedy and just pulls that out and throws us into a horror movie with the same characters. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, it absolutely does. Like, I truly believe this is intentional to subvert the expectations of the viewer.
Okay, and maybe I'm just looking at it from a completely different lens, and that's what I love about talking about this movie. But yeah, once we get to, you know, I say Act 2, the romance is kind of over, kind of an afterthought. The playful banter disappears. Without warning, we're watching people desperately try to survive relentless bird attacks by either at first it starts as gulls, and then for some reason they switch to ravens or crows, two birds that I don't think would be together, but I'm not a I don't know shit about birds. Like, there are people out there who don't even think birds are real. So I don't know if those types of birds would be really that close to each other. I don't know. It is a coastal town, so I'd like to think it only really be those seagulls. But again, I don't know enough about birds to know if they would even be around the same place. But I think it's an incredibly bold decision to do that. But for me, it was a little jarring just because I wasn't expecting it. But I have to remember, it's Hitchcock. It had to have been an intentional move because he's very much like Kubrick, where everything happens for a reason. He's not just doing stuff to blow smoke out of his ass. You know, I feel Hitchcock is very, very precise on what he's doing. I mean, at this point, he's been making movies for over 40 years. So I'd like to think he knows what he's doing when it came down to the birds. But, you know.
He's a bit of an obsessive,
right? For
better or for worse.
For better or for worse, exactly. So kind of moving down my notes here. So you took it as an intentional thing that he did. I took it as kind of a whiplash thing, but at the same time, I guess those can go hand in hand. If he's intentionally trying to give you that whiplash, then I guess that works for me. It was just so jarring that I was like, did he mean to do this, or was this poor writing? You know, I just had a lot of questions that were going on in my head, and I didn't have any
it's interesting
answers.
That you felt it was like a whiplash, and I felt like it was progressing at a natural pace.
Interesting. Yeah, that's I'm gonna harken back to that's what I love about talking to movies. So talking about the birthday party, right? Because we mentioned that a second ago. Once the birthday party attack begins, you're not watching the same movie. People are being attacked. I mean, this is long before the disaster movies of the modern age, obviously.
Scene scared the shit out of my dog, by the way.
Really?
Yeah, well, Vinny was laying on the couch with us, and I'd paused it at a certain point, and came back to it, and I pressed play, and the volume was up a little too loud, and Amanda was trying to move a blanket from underneath of him right when that was happening, and he flipped the fuck out. I think it was the combination of the sound of the birds and the blanket. He didn't have a good rest of his night. So this is now the scariest movie that he's ever seen.
Okay. Was that Bubby?
Yeah.
Oh, poor puppy. But I want to talk about something that you mentioned, because like you had mentioned, it just like the concept of this movie seems so ridiculous, especially after watching The Birds too. Because on paper, the idea of being terrorized by crows and gulls does feel like it borders on parody, right? Like, it's creatures we see every single day. We feed them in parks. Like, we complain when they steal our fries at the beach. They're ordinary animals that Hitchcock turns into these horrifying monsters, and not just like one or two. Like, there's hundreds upon maybe even thousands of these birds at some points. I know Hitchcock said go ahead.
Continue, please.
Oh, no.
No, I was going to say, I think that's one thing that makes it so scary, is it's such an ordinary creature.
Yeah.
It's not like we are predisposed to be afraid of sharks. We are predisposed to be afraid of lions. But birds are something that we encounter, like you said, we encounter every day, and we're not normally afraid of them.
And that's what this whole month is. This whole month is animals that were not predisposed to be afraid of right out of the gate. Like one of the movies is Snake, so that's really a hit or miss, but a lot of the movies this month are movies that, animals typically, like birds, aren't just going to start attacking you for no reason. That's why I wanted to start here. And what I like about the birds, though, is they aren't really organized. They're chaotic, they're explosive, they're random, and you never know who they're going to target. The birthday party sequence to me is especially effective because the victims are children. Fucking Hitchcock really was like, fuck them kids. A lot of times.
Tie a bird to that child.
Tie a bird to that child and have him run on a treadmill in front of a fucking backdrop of Bodega Bay. And it's also happening in the daylight too, so there's a lot of things that don't traditionally happen in horror movies that's going on here that you're like, this is fucking horrifying. And
I also, as someone who's seen a lot of Hitchcock's films, I really appreciate the setting of Bodega Bay. The town has kind of got a rundown, gritty feeling to it. It doesn't feel like the glossy world that Hitchcock normally resides. It's closer to that of the Bates Motel in Psycho. It's a little more rundown. It's not glitzy. It's even just comparing that to the world of San Francisco at the beginning of this film to Bodega Bay, it feels more in line of something like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which would come later on, than much else of what we've seen in Hitchcock's career leading up to this. And I appreciate that even at his old age at this time that he's still playing and experimenting and trying different things.
Well, yeah, and he's very much known to not like shooting on location. So for him to do a movie that is a lot of it was done in Bodega Bay, but I know there's a lot of there is a lot of
there's a fair amount of rear screen projection being used, which some people can look at that and think it's kind of silly looking. At the time, like the way that Hitchcock used rear screen projection was always really clever. And there is like the scene of Mitch and Melanie where they're walking up a hill during the birthday party, and that's a set. Like they do mix the two in, but there is a fair amount of location shooting for a man who didn't like it.
Yeah, he didn't
like not having control.
Right, because ultimately in a studio you have a lot more control of what's happening, and but I will say I do think this is one of the earliest examples of horror stripping away the illusion that everyone is safe. Because in a town where it's just this little town, everyone seems to know each other, and then everything completely goes off the rails. Like there's no. It's like one of those movies where it's like there's no supernatural curse, no government conspiracy. It's just like the birds are like, today is the day everyone fucking dies in this small town and there's no explanation either. That's what I love about this movie. Typically, I'm like, I need to know why this is happening. But
no explanation, no resolution.
No, yeah.
I would not be surprised if George Romero took some influence from this for Night of the Living Dead, because if you look at the way that Night of the Living Dead plays out with people holed up in a house as these creatures are trying to break their way in, it's very similar to the birds. I know you have more you want to say, but I cannot let this I know we're on a little bit of a time crunch, but we cannot discuss the birds without me bringing up Ub Iwerks.
Sure.
I don't know if you have him in your notes. Ub Iwerks is who is responsible for the visual effects in this film. I believe he won an Academy Award for his work on this film. But Ub Iwerks is an iconic name, especially if you were invested in the world of Walt Disney Productions, because he was he helped create Mickey Mouse and Oswald the Lucky Rabbit, and was the actual original director of Steamboat Willie. Walt was uncredited on there, but Ub Iwerks did the heavy lifting on Steamboat Willie and a lot of those early cartoons. And after him and Walt never quite got along, and he eventually ended up leaving Walt Disney Studios to then go work in visual effects. So he is one of the icons of special effects icons of cartoon animation and what we know. And like, we wouldn't have Chuck Jones, we wouldn't have Wilfred Jackson and those guys without the work Eworks did. But then I love that he eventually was like, fuck this, and would go on to do visual effects and would eventually come back to Disney. And he created the visual effects for the original Parent Trap, which that split screen photography was unheard of back when he did it. It's kind of a movie we look down upon because of its racist iconography, but like he was the one who mixed the animation. No, I'm getting to it. He's the one. Okay. He's the one who mixed the animation with live action for Song of the South, which is the movie I'm referencing. And he is a genius. He also worked on Mary Poppins and a bunch of other visual effects, and we have to bring him up because you can look at these visual effects and be like, maybe these don't hold up, but back in 1963, these fucked people's minds.
Well, yeah, and I mean, even watching it on the 4K, because I got the 4K for this watch. The 4K looks fantastic. And yeah, do the effects hold up? Yes and no. There are some scenes that look great. There are some scenes that don't look the best. But I mean, at the end of the day, for 1963, superimposing all of those fucking birds flying around, I mean, I can't even imagine having to do all of that. And yes, in 1963, this would have blown everybody away. Like, holy shit. Yeah,
so I had to bring him up.
No, that's perfect. Yeah, I mean, we have to mention the effects. You absolutely have to. For the
he
time.
also did the skeletal. He also did the skeletal dance for Disney. The spooky, scary skeletons like animation.
Yeah. Wow, this man has done everything. Yeah, and
Yep.
I still think I still think the effects hold up. There's also a lot of practical
I do think
use.
so too.
Yeah. And there's some practical use of puppets. There are real birds in there as well.
Yeah, there's some poor treatment of real birds in this movie.
There are definitely some poor treatment of real birds. I think this was probably back before we had really established animal safety practices and stuff like that. So, but
gets a little squirrely, and a lot of people got hurt. Like 12 people, including Tippi Hedren, got severely injured on this movie. Because as much as I will compliment him as a filmmaker, Alfred Hitchcock was kind of a maniac and did not treat specifically his actresses very well.
Yeah.
Some actresses had a lot of good things to say about him. Other ones, like Tippi Hedren, did not. But she came back and did Marnie because she wanted to stick it to him and show that she can act.
Yeah, that she could. That was going to be my next comment. Is like, it's interesting that she wanted to work with him again after having such a terrible experience on The Birds, but what you just said makes a lot of sense. So the last thing I'll mention here is kind of the last act. It's around 93 minutes. We get another transformation. Yet again, sun goes down, windows boarded up, furniture shoved against doors, and the Brennan home becomes this fortress. And now we're into like this kind of home invasion movie where the birds are outside and they're obviously trying to get in. I want to know what that door was made out of that they were pecking through, because either the door was paper mache or the birds' beaks were made out of some sort of vibranium, because how are they poking through that fucking door? But that one wasn't so much of a jarring tonal shift as the birthday party was. That one makes sense. They were taking refuge. They were boarding up the door. So I enjoy that one, because what we're losing in spectacle of all of these birds attacking, I think we gain this suffocating tension, this suspense through restraint. There's no score outside of the weird bird noises. It's just silence, You'll get fluttering wings and pecking outside. Hitchcock forces us to become like hyper aware of every sound, because the characters are doing the same thing. They're also reacting to those sounds. And I think not having a score in this movie ultimately enhanced the tension, the drama, and making us feel like we were a part of the movie rather than just watching the movie. That's just me, though. I don't know how you feel.
I completely agree. And I watched the 4K, and I have to say, like, the mono soundtrack is quite impressive. And I don't normally believe in doing surround mixes for movies that don't need it. But this is one where I feel like you could have potentially done some really creative, like, Atmos mixing if you had the elements to do so.
Yeah, I agree. Of course, I watched it. I don't know if the 4K has any full surround, but
it's just mono.
Yeah, it's just mono, and it does sound it sounds pretty good, honestly. And like the picture looks great. The picture is incredibly sharp. Man, that 4K looks really good. And then really the ending too, after they have all the stuff going on inside of the house. I can't remember where the fucking school scene happens. Is that before they get to the house?
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's way before.
Okay, so yeah, you have that scene where everyone's at the school, and I don't know why they left. Why did they leave this? Y'all were safe, and then you're like, we're going to take all these kids out into the streets, and then the birds were like, the fuck you are, and started. I found that so bizarre that they just left.
The only thing I can think of is you have to kind of think about like what information they truly had at that time. Okay. Like, yeah, there was a isolated case of these birds attacking, and they're all kind of like weirded out by it, but I think it's this human nature thing where like you don't think it's gonna happen twice. Like once again, look at Jaws.
True.
Like wow, one guy was attacked by a shark, but it's not gonna happen again. Trust me. And then they also, and this came much before too. You had that phenomenal scene in like the bar restaurant where they're kind of having the debate about what's going on and. By the way, at your beginning, you talked about how there's mild alcohol and cigarette usage. I love that the woman comes in and gets changed so she can feed the cigarette machine. I just thought that was so of its time and kind of beautiful.
And just the utter fucking, like, I wasn't sure if this was a liquor store or a bar because the back wall had so much liquor. I was like, good Lord.
It's both. Both.
It's like a package store and a bar.
But no, it's like, that final sequence or not final sequence, it's actually it's a big chunk of the film when they're actually locked up in the house. It's got a little, once again, using the save the cat, mentality. It's got everything. It's got the bad guys closing in, which is clearly the birds. It's got the all is lost moment where like, how the fuck are we going to get out of this? What are we going to do? They should have just dipped when they had the chance.
Right.
It's got the Dark Night of the Soul, which is the moment where, they're at their most dire circumstances, and then their break into Act 3 is when let's try to get through this, and that's probably roughly when Mitch has to sneak out to the car, which is a really incredible sequence.
Are you talking about when he opens the garage?
Yep.
Oh yeah, perfect.
All of that. That's all great. We didn't talk about it, but another thing kind of going towards how I think they kind of pieced this out perfectly. We didn't even talk about the old guy who had his eyes pecked out.
Oh God, that's right. Yeah, there are some genuinely
that was a shocking moment. And then just see the birds mangled in the windows who were trying to get it. Oh fuck. To have no music and to have that sequence work as well as it did, just because this movie builds dread in a way that is actually impressive for having no music. It's quite astonishing.
Yeah, there are some really good shots. The guy got his eyes poked out. I think his name was Don. And then at the restaurant, bar, package store, whatever you want to call it, when for some reason, Tippi Hedren decides to just go to the phone booth. I don't know why. There's a great moment where, well, I guess it's right before that, where there's a guy outside lighting a cigarette, or a cigar. They're like, don't do that, don't do that. And then we get a big explosion. And as Tippy's in the phone booth, you have a guy barreling down the road who hits a stop sign, fucking skirts into the other car. And I was like, this is like full blown panic right now. And then of course, Rod comes in and puts her back into the restaurant.
Yeah.
But
so
yeah,
I know we only got like 15 minutes left before we got to wrap this up, so I don't want to keep yapping too much.
No,
format to stick to.
Yeah, I want to. I just wanted to mention the last kind of, like I say, I'm calling it like the epilogue in a way where he opens the door, the birds have suddenly become quiet, the attacks stop.
Not knowing when they're going to attack is what's really just unsettling.
Right. And Rod is just kind of stepping through the birds. He gets in his car, he moves it up. Tippi Hedren at this point is in like some sort of psychosis. And then she sees all the birds and she's like, no. And they're like, just get to the car. But that scene I think was the most impactful because you have all the birds, you have all the gulls, you have all the ravens that they're using just sitting there. And it's like they could attack at any moment, but they don't. And then they drive off into the sunset.
And the really slow driving and that final image of just like the sun coming through the clouds, which should be a hopeful image, but everything is just covered in birds. You don't know what they're driving off to because they made reference in the film that there had been some attacks in nearby towns, but not as bad as Bodega Bay. So we don't know if this is going to spread.
Yeah, and there's roadblocks that have been put up too, and that's why I feel like it's all almost
air blocks.
Yeah, air blocks. It almost feels post-apocalyptic, right? Because it seems like civilization is collapsing. Normal life has ended. These survivors are cautiously navigating the ruins of this town as they exit. And going back to what you said, films like Night of the Living Dead, The Road, A Quiet Place, and countless other movies would later build entire stories around this exact feeling. So I think Hitchcock gets less than 10 minutes of that moment, and it really is one of the boldest decisions, I think, of the movie. It ends, no explanation, no breakthrough, no military intervention, just no narration telling us what happens next. The birds remain, humanity leaves, roll credits, or, roll the Universal Pictures, because they've already done the credits at the beginning. So the mystery of this movie really lingers kind of forever. You have no idea what's happening. And a lot of the times I need my explanation, but in this case, I like not knowing. You're like, what happens after? I guess I'll have to watch The Birds 2, The Landing.
I'm always surprised that you crave explanation as much as you do, only just because I feel like horror works so much better without it.
Sometimes I feel like I do, but you're right. A lot of the times I've learned this over time. A lot of the times an answer to things weakens the story. Now, my only combat to this is Michael Myers. He snaps as a kid and then he's a serial killer. That's where I need explanation. Something happened to him. Usually you don't just go crazy. Something changes in your DNA or something. But in an instance like this, they're going somewhere. Who knows what's happening? Because an explanation of what happens is ultimately going to dull the effect of not knowing. So yeah, I'm very hit or miss and up and down with that. But I think that's all I have on The Birds. Anything else you'd like to add before we move on here?
E Works is the man.
E Works is the man. I will agree. All right, let's move into the final cut here. Taglines. These are some of the worst taglines I've seen. Please do not see the end first. See it from the beginning.
Oh, well, so Hitchcock had this whole fucking thing. So this started in Psycho. So fun fact for the listeners out there. There was a period of time where start times for movies didn't matter. People just showed up at the movies. They watched wherever the movie was at, and then it ended, and then they would, it would play again, and they would just watch up until wherever they left off.
Oh, weird.
And Hitchcock started this with Psycho, where he didn't like that because he thought if you came at the wrong time of Psycho, you're going to miss out on some really important shit.
Yeah.
So he had very strict times, and there was actually great standees of Hitchcock with his watch, and it's like, this movie starts promptly at this time, and no one after a certain point will be admitted.
Okay.
Thank you. That kind of ties into that, because Hitchcock was trying to change cinema culture. So it's kind of crazy to think that up to 1963, that's how movies worked.
Oh my. Okay. We've come a long way.
Some history.
Suspense and shock beyond anything you've ever seen or imagined. Nothing you have ever witnessed before has prepared you for such sheer stabbing shock. And The Birds is coming. Not the greatest. Fun trivia, though, here. I like this, because this is fucked up. When audiences left the UK premiere at the Odeon, Leicester Square, London, they were greeted by the sound of screeching and flapping birds from a loudspeaker hidden in the trees to scare them further. That's fucked up, but kind of...
It's so fucking good, though.
But kind of funny. Alfred Hitchcock revealed on the Dick Cavett Show that 1968 that 3,200 birds were trained for the movie. He said the ravens were the cleverest and the seagulls were the most vicious. Accurate. Rod Taylor claims that the seagulls were fed a mixture of wheat and whiskey. It was the only way to get them to stand around so much.
Oof.
Yeah. One bird named Arkine really seemed to dislike Taylor, who played Mitch Brenner. The feathered star went out of his way to attack the actor, even when the cameras weren't rolling. Every morning, if we were on the set together, he'd come over and bite me, Taylor revealed. I hated him, and he hated me.
I hate that fucking bird.
A fucking gull. And lastly here, the classic scene in which Tippi Hedren watches birds attacking the townsfolk was filmed in the studio from a phone booth. When Melanie opens the phone booth door, a bird trainer had trained gulls that were taught to fly at it. Surviving photos of the shooting of the scene were published in the book Hitchcock at Work by Bill Crone. No goofs that I could find of value. Rated at 7.6 out of 10 on IMDb, which equivalates to a 3.8 out of 5 on Letterboxd. Or for our purposes of the Nightmare Index, 3.7 out of 5 on Letterboxd, 95% on the tomato meter, and an 83% audience score. I know Michael is considering not giving ratings anymore, which is fine, but if you were to rate this, what do you think you'd give it?
So that is accurate. I have, at least for the time being, have decided to just do away with ratings for a little while. But for sake of this podcast, I have thought about this. And instead of stars, I'm going to give it, there is a gentleman in this movie who plays a fisherman, and his name is Doodles Weaver. So I'm going to give it 4 Doodles Weaver out of 5.
Okay, so 4. I'm going to actually stick to my 3.5 now that we've discussed it. So that gives us a Nightmare Index of a 3.75, which is going to sit right in between We Are Still Here at a 3.69 and Ginger Snaps at a 3.78. Also from the corrections department regarding the Nightmare Index, Werewolves on Wheels did fall above Monster Seafood Wars, having a 1.97 out of 5. Monster Seafood Wars having a 1.90 out of 5. I don't think anything is going to go lower than that. Similar movies according to IMDb. We're going to have a lot of Hitchcock movies because usually they go by director. Vertigo, Psycho, Marnie, Rope, and North by Northwest. Similar movies according to Letterboxd, we have Jaws, The Happening, Psycho, Cujo, and Bird Box. I assume because the name Bird is in the title, because I don't remember there being actual birds in Bird Box.
Yeah, I feel like it was kind of post-apocalyptic though, so maybe.
Oh, true. Let's do some funny reviews and then we'll get the hell out of here.
Okay. I grabbed a couple. It was a little harder to do because this movie is so well liked. So I went for people who didn't like the movie. So
perfect.
If you want to start, or I can.
If you went for people that didn't like it, I have a lot of people who did like it. So I'll go 4 stars from Maya, everyone. Mitch, what's happening? Mitch, how the fuck would I know? I kept saying that. I'm like, why would he know? Stop asking this man.
I thought it was weird that Mitch referred to his mom as dear.
Yeah, that was strange. That was definitely strange.
I got Zach. Gave it a 1.5. He says, "What a snoozer. My friends and I put on 2 hours of silence, occasionally broken by fart noises, just to keep us invested. The Gen Z attention spans couldn't handle this."
So that's the problem. It's Gen Z. 3.5 stars from Maria, the OG Angry Birds movie.
This one is from a buddy of mine, Brandon Klein. He actually does love this movie. He gave it 4.5 stars. He says, "I relate to Tippi Hedren so much because my hair also gets messier to reflect my emotional state."
Let's see here. I've got, I love this one because of the conspiracy theory. 4 stars from Abigail. Good thing birds aren't really actually real, because there's a whole conspiracy about birds not being real, and it is just some silly shit.
This is from Grace. You gave it a 0.5 star. It says, "Bye. Why was she Amazon one-day delivery before Amazon one-day delivery was a thing?"
She was there pretty quick. No rating, but just a heart from Demi Adejuyibji. Drop some bread and run, girl. Damn. I think that might have helped.
Wait, what was the name on that one?
Demi Adejuyibji.
Oh, he's on Game Changer and a lot of those.
Oh, no shit. Okay. Hell yeah.
Okay, I got another one. This one is from Asti_09, half star. I would have beat the fuck out of those birds. Movie would be over in 10 minutes.
Okay. 3 stars from Marsh Boy. Don't let your birds watch this.
All right. And then my last one is from Brock Fama, half star. Holy hell. Just don't. Hitchcock's stinkiest slop fest. I hate that people told me that this movie is scary. I despise that this is considered a must-watch to people. I refuse to watch the sequel because if it's any worse, it could be considered MK Ultra level torture.
It's gonna be worse. So, dude. Last one, and let's see here. 2.5 stars from Noen, rooting for the birds because they deserved better. And you know what? Even though they were attacking people, they definitely deserve better. All right. So, Michael, where can people hear the sultry sound of your voice on your podcast?
All right. You can find my podcast, The Shame List Picture Show, everywhere you find podcasts. We're on the Someone's Favorite Productions Network, along with Austin's Show and a lot of other fantastic stuff. I'm on Letterboxd Vyers 10/2008, and you can find me on all forms of social media as either Michael_Vyers or Shame List Picture Show. Find me on Instagram. Fuck TikTok. I don't know why I still post there. They suck.
Yeah.
Find me on Instagram. That's where I post all my shit. And I do physical media reviews. I post monthly film pics, and occasionally pictures of my dogs.
And he talks about aspect ratios more than anybody on that app. If you enjoy the show, please rate and review on your favorite podcast app of choice. Someone gave Michael's show a 1 star and then didn't even fucking comment why. You coward! I'm calling you out. Boo to whoever did that. Boo
this man.
Boo this man. Anyways, follow us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Slasher, Threads, and YouTube at Frightmares Podcast. This is how I get my 1 star now. Our email is stayspooky@outlook.com. Check me out on Letterboxd at Dr. Proctor. If you would like to expand your movie podcast listening, be sure to check out the Shameless Picture Show, the Dead-Eyed Millennial Film Club, and 1 Week Rental as well. Also, the vast library of Someone's Favorite Productions. There is a podcast for you. Next week, Corey and I will be doing The Bay from 2012 as our deep cut pick. It is streaming on Pluto, Tubi, and YouTube TV. And I know if anybody's heard or hasn't heard about The Bay and you read the synopsis, you're like, how is this an animal attack movie? Oh, just wait. You'll see. That's kind of like the whole twist of this movie. It's great. So it might not seem like an animal attack on the surface because things take place underwater. Anyways, until next week, guys, stay tuned and stay spooky.
Thank you for listening. To hear more shows from the Someone's Favorite Productions podcast network, please select the link in the description.